Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Chronicles Untold and turn on notifications, because every week we bring you the most powerful true stories in history, stories of courage, sacrifice, and moments that changed the world forever. Imagine being 19 years old, trapped inside a steel landing craft while the freezing waters of the English Channel slam against the hull around you. The sky above is black with smoke. The ocean ahead is exploding with artillery fire, and somewhere beyond the darkness waits Hitler's Atlantic Wall. Machine guns, mines, artillery, and thousands of German soldiers waiting to kill you before your boots even touch the sand. Then the ramp drops. Men beside you are cut down instantly. The water turns red. Some soldiers drown under the weight of their own gear before firing a single shot. Others keep moving forward through pure terror because behind them there is no retreat, and ahead of them lies the future of the free world. This was D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in human history. The day America and its allies stormed the beaches of Normandy and began the destruction of Nazi Germany. By 1944, the world had already spent nearly 5 years trapped inside the deadliest war humanity had ever seen. Europe had fallen under the shadow of Adolf Hitler. France had collapsed in 1940. Entire cities across the continent had been bombed into ruins. In the East, millions had died as the Soviet Union fought desperately against the German war machine. Stalin demanded that the Western Allies open a second front in Europe. But such an invasion would require something almost impossible: moving an army across the sea directly into fortified enemy territory. The United States, Britain, and Canada knew that if the invasion failed, the war could continue for years. Worse, another catastrophic defeat could hand Hitler enough time to strengthen his defenses and perhaps even force negotiations. The pressure on Allied leaders was unbearable. General Dwight D. Eisenhower became the supreme commander of Operation Overlord, the code name for the invasion of Nazi-occupied France. The responsibility placed on his shoulders was almost beyond imagination. More than 150,000 Allied troops would participate in the first day alone. Over 7,000 ships would cross the English Channel. Nearly 11,000 aircraft would dominate the skies. Never before had humanity attempted an operation on such a scale. Entire towns in southern England transformed into gigantic military camps, filled with tanks, trucks, ammunition, fuel, and frightened young soldiers preparing for battle. Many of these Americans had never even left their home states before the war. Boys from Kansas, Texas, Ohio, and New York suddenly found themselves preparing to invade Fortress Europe. Meanwhile, across the Channel, Germany prepared for the inevitable attack. Hitler ordered the construction of the Atlantic Wall, a massive chain of bunkers, artillery positions, minefields, anti-tank obstacles, and machine gun nests stretching thousands of miles along the European coastline. One of Hitler's most respected commanders, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, believed the invasion had to be stopped directly on the beaches. Rommel understood something terrifying. Once the Allies established a foothold in France, Germany's defeat would become only a matter of time. He flooded fields, planted millions of mines, reinforced bunkers, and covered the beaches with steel traps designed to rip apart landing craft and drown invading soldiers before they could reach shore. But while the Germans strengthened their defenses, the Allies prepared one of the greatest deception campaigns in military history. Fake tanks, fake airfields, inflatable aircraft, false radio transmissions, and phantom armies were created to convince Hitler that the invasion would happen near Calais rather than Normandy. The deception worked brilliantly. Even when Allied troops finally landed in Normandy, many German commanders still believed it was only a diversion and that the real invasion was yet to come. That single mistake would change the fate of the war. The men preparing to invade France trained relentlessly. They practiced amphibious assaults on British beaches that looked eerily similar to Normandy. Some training exercises ended in disaster, costing hundreds of lives before the invasion even began. Yet the training continued because Allied commanders knew the truth. The beaches of Normandy would become a slaughterhouse if the troops were not ready. Soldiers learned how to survive machine gun fire, scale cliffs, destroy bunkers, and move under artillery bombardment. New weapons were developed specifically for the invasion, including amphibious tanks, mine-clearing vehicles, in flamethrower tanks capable of burning enemy positions into ashes. As June approached, southern England became crowded with soldiers waiting for the order to move. The secrecy surrounding the operation was extreme. Most troops had no idea where they were going until the final days. Letters were written home. Some soldiers attended church services for what they believed might be the last time. Others tried to laugh, joke, and pretend they were not terrified. Yet beneath the forced smiles was a silent understanding that many would never return alive. Then came disaster. Just before the invasion was scheduled to begin, violent storms struck the English Channel. Massive waves battered the invasion fleet, and Eisenhower faced an impossible decision. Delay the invasion too long, and the Germans might discover the operation. Launch during terrible weather, and thousands could drown before reaching France. Meteorologists predicted a brief break in the storm on June 6th. After hours of tension and debate, Eisenhower finally made the decision that would alter world history forever. "Okay, let's go," he said. The invasion was on. During the night of June 5th, thousands of paratroopers boarded aircraft bound for France. These men would become the first Allied soldiers to enter occupied Europe on D-Day. Their mission was incredibly dangerous. Land behind enemy lines, sabotage German defenses, capture bridges, and create chaos before the beach landings began. Many painted their faces with dark camouflage and checked their equipment in silence. Some joked nervously, others prayed. They knew survival was far from guaranteed. When the planes crossed the channel, anti-aircraft fire erupted across the night sky. Paratroopers were scattered across Normandy, many landing miles away from their intended drop zones. Some drowned in flooded fields. Others were shot before touching the ground. Yet despite the chaos, their attacks confused German forces and disrupted communications at critical moments. Then came dawn. At approximately 6:30 in the morning, on June 6, 1944, the greatest amphibious assault in history crashed into the beaches of Normandy. The invasion zones were divided into 5 beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. British, Canadian, and American troops stormed the coast simultaneously under massive naval and aerial bombardment. The horizon disappeared behind smoke, explosions, and thousands of ships. The sound was deafening. Artillery shells screamed overhead, while machine guns hammered the incoming landing craft. Nowhere was the horror worse than Omaha Beach. The American soldiers landing there faced nearly intact German defenses, positioned high above the shoreline. The preliminary bombardments had failed to destroy many bunkers, leaving machine guns and artillery ready to fire directly into the invading troops. As landing craft approached the beach, soldiers became trapped inside cramped steel boats, while bullets ripped through the ramps before they even opened. When the doors finally dropped, chaos exploded instantly. Men were cut down within seconds. Others leapt into water too deep to stand, dragged beneath the waves by heavy equipment. Bodies floated through the surf while survivors desperately searched for cover on a beach offering almost none. Veterans later described Omaha as pure hell. Machine gun fire tore across the sand so intensely that entire groups of soldiers became pinned behind small obstacles, unable to move forward or backward. Medics worked frantically under fire, treating the wounded while risking death every second. Officers tried desperately to reorganize shattered units. Communication collapsed. Some commanders even considered abandoning the assault entirely. Had Omaha failed completely, the entire invasion might have collapsed with it. But amid the carnage, small groups of American soldiers began climbing the bluffs overlooking the beach. Without waiting for orders, they moved through smoke, explosions, and enemy fire, attacking German bunkers from the sides and rear. Acts of unbelievable courage unfolded everywhere. Engineers cleared paths through minefields while bullets struck the sand around them. Destroyers sailed dangerously close to shore to blast German positions at point-blank range. Slowly, inch by bloody inch, the Americans pushed inland. Elsewhere along the coast, British and Canadian forces also faced brutal fighting. At Sword Beach, British troops battled through intense resistance while trying to capture the strategic city of Caen. At Juno Beach, Canadian soldiers endured heavy casualties as rough seas delayed reinforcements, and German defenders fought fiercely. Yet despite the losses, the Allies continued advancing. Across Normandy, Ordinary young men displayed extraordinary bravery under unimaginable pressure. Back in England, Eisenhower followed the reports with growing anxiety. Some messages were encouraging, others catastrophic. Omaha Beach remained uncertain for hours. The Supreme Commander had already written a statement accepting full responsibility if the invasion failed. He understood that the fate of millions depended on the outcome of that single day. As the battle continued, Allied aircraft dominated the skies, striking German reinforcements, bridges, roads, railways, and communication centers across northern France. French resistance fighters sabotaged infrastructure and attacked German supply lines, slowing enemy reinforcements desperately trying to reach Normandy. By the end of June 6th, more than 156,000 Allied troops had landed in France. The cost was horrific. Thousands of Allied soldiers were dead, wounded, or missing. Entire units had been shattered. Omaha Beach alone became forever known as Bloody Omaha because of the scale of the slaughter. Yet despite everything, the invasion had succeeded. Hitler's Atlantic Wall had been breached. The Allies now possessed a foothold in Nazi-occupied Europe. The fighting in Normandy was far from over. What followed were weeks of brutal combat through hedgerows, villages, forests, and ruined cities. German counterattacks attempted desperately to throw the Allies back into the sea. The battle for Caen became one of the bloodiest urban battles of the campaign. American forces struggled through the deadly Bocage countryside, where German defenders could ambush entire units from concealed positions behind thick hedges. Progress was slow, exhausting, and costly. Still, the Allied war machine kept growing stronger every single day. Artificial harbors built by the Allies allowed thousands of vehicles, weapons, and supplies to pour into Normandy even without major ports. Eventually, the Americans captured Cherbourg, giving the Allies a critical deep-water harbor for logistics and reinforcements. Then came Operation Cobra, the breakout that finally shattered German defenses in Normandy. Massive bombing raids devastated enemy positions, allowing American armored divisions to surge across France. The collapse of German forces in Normandy opened the road toward Paris. Within weeks, the Allies liberated the French capital while German armies retreated eastward. The invasion that had begun in terror and uncertainty on the beaches of Normandy became the beginning of the end for Adolf Hitler's empire. Less than a year later, Nazi Germany surrendered unconditionally. Yet D-Day was never simply about strategy, maps, or military statistics. It was about young men facing almost certain death because they believed freedom was worth fighting for. Many never made it home. Thousands remained buried in Normandy beneath endless rows of white crosses overlooking the beaches where they fell. Those cemeteries stand today as silent reminders of the price paid on June 6, 1944. When people remember D-Day, they often imagine a single heroic moment, but the truth is even more powerful. Victory came from countless acts of courage performed by ordinary people under extraordinary circumstances. Terrified soldiers kept moving forward. Medics carried wounded men through gunfire. Pilots flew into storms and anti-aircraft fire. Sailors crossed dangerous waters, knowing many ships would never return. Together, they carried the hopes of the free world onto the shores of Normandy. D-Day was not just a battle. It was the moment the free world proved that tyranny could be challenged and defeated, no matter how terrifying the odds seemed. The men who stormed Normandy did not know if they would survive the next hour, but they moved forward anyway. And because they did, history changed forever. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful untold moments from history, make sure to subscribe to Chronicles Untold, leave a like on the video, and tell us in the comments which historical event you want to see next. Thanks for watching.